2. Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of Grapple. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
And tickets are on sale, JP. General sale. They have hit for our live show. Professional podcasters doing a professional podcast live. I think I didn't butcher the title there. It's a celebratory week. We had the Patreon pre-sale go through swimmingly. Definitely still got some tickets left for our general sale, but yeah, it's out there. And yeah, anybody who does want to join us out in YouTube land or out there on Spotify, now's the time. Exciting times, JP. We've been sat there with a clicker watching those numbers come through.
Oh, I've been absolutely buzzing, mate. Been brilliant, and we've had a phenomenal response so far. So, like, I'm just like thinking, all right, okay, this is going to be like absolutely fantastic, and we've got a brilliant venue this time round. We are literally next door to the Copper Box. So again, to do it's a hell of a tongue twister as well, isn't it? Professional podcasters doing a professional podcast. It is genuinely like that's a real test live. So yeah, Saturday 24th, 1 p.m. doors. It's a cracking venue. It's near it's near the Westfield. Obviously, it's near the Copper Box. You've got the Rev Pro show going on kind of afterwards as well, which I imagine will have all sorts going on. If anything was last year was anything to go by. And yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So we've got 1 o'clock that we're opening up for it as well. If you want to get your tickets, get yourself across to the Big Cartel page. Yeah, that's good.
We'll have the
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, we'll have the link for the tickets in the description here as well. And I'm mostly just excited for Matty's forfeit. Just been in the pre-show threatening a couple of potential things we might have him doing after the great. I keep wanting to say Chad Gable or Gable Clarkson, Gable Stevenson bet. So we're gonna find out if I'm not going double or nothing on it. I'm definitely gonna settle it. So there's definitely be something happening there. And I mentioned on the pre-show, I had a couple of people in my DMs with some sneaky ideas for what we could do as well. But no, I'm excited for that. Excited just to see everybody as well. We'll obviously have a few pints as well in that first hour while we wait for things to kick off as well. And yeah, it's always just a great part of the year, isn't it? So yeah, please do come join us. It makes our year as well. Appreciate that. Obviously, yeah, it's maybe all in excitement isn't quite at the levels it was last year, but great to see. Obviously, our patrons are excited, and Red Pro will be great on the Saturday as well. So come along for that as well. Can't wait.
Yep, can't wait for that as well. So it's absolutely fantastic stuff on there as well. And we got a bumper June coming up in the meantime as well. While we're in plugs mode, because we'll get into it when you explain what we're going to be talking about this week. We had the deep cut, the King of the Mountain choice of Conor O'Loughlin, which was the deep cut on Aces and Eights, which TNA very, very helpfully put together as a big compilation video, which still seemed to cut loads of stuff out that actually happened in the meantime. So we that was a phenomenal show. Absolutely loved recording that one. Loads of big memories, and Taz looking like Parappa the Rapper as well at the same time. It's an incredible angle.
Yeah, well, it's one of them. Like my memory of Ace, it's a bit like doing the end of WCW show we did the last month in WCW. Was my nostalgia misplaced? Maybe in some ways. I kind of found was the peak of Aces and Eights as long as I remembered it. Absolutely not. It's one promo, pretty much. Maybe two promos, I think. One angle and one elongated program throughout an entire episode of Impact, which we get into, which were the high points. But yeah, definitely feeling there was a lot of that second half that Matty and Connor were very into that had gone, but I just passed me by it in the moment, and then trying to watch it in recap form and try and go, why is Anderson there right now? Why is there an AJ Styles match happening? Who's in the Aces and Eights still? Where's everybody gone? Oh, everybody's left TNA. It does become very TNA in the end, but no, I enjoyed it, and yeah, I got a lot of Shield lore in there as well. I didn't know they'd stolen so much from the TV show, so Matty filters in on all that stuff as well. So no, it's been fun doing these little TNA deep dives. I enjoyed the OGs and LAX one, so that was good. Now we've done this. I don't know what are the other TNA stables. I noticed there's an Immortal playlist that's on the TNA YouTube. I think Garrett Kidney's put together. I don't know if we're doing that one, JP. I think that might be where to draw the line.
I don't know. Now you've said it and you've put the little thought in there. It's like,
is there even a story? Is there a beginning, a middle, and an end with Immortal?
That's what we'll find out. like non-linear, non-narrative storytelling in TNA. That was the next step after basically watching lots and lots of Sons of Anarchy and deciding we'll do this word for word. But yeah, we could go into that. Could go into the TNA versus SEX feud from classic TNA, and that's full bore, like kind of Vince Russo. But that even feels a bit too hardcore, even for me. Going back to like proper 2003, 2004 TNA, that's probably a step too far. But those kind of deep dives, they're absolutely brilliant as well.
Great,
We've got
great to see the chat enjoyed it. Got Connor here saying he was walking to work singing the theme tune on Monday. I was a little as well. The vocal version though as well. You've got to go with that. Andy Ogden says here, yeah, the Immortal one apparently the cut bits out as well. Ewan saying here, yeah, there's a Santana and Homicide. I've got it in the news stories. A match coming up. Maybe they're going to be reliving some TNA lore with LX and OGs. Maybe somebody out there is listening. But no, I'm enjoying it. It's like a little sidestep from the normal type of retro shows we do. Early TNA, Flying Elvises, Mikey says here. I don't know if I'm quite willing to go that far, but maybe we can do it. And yeah, the other big Patreon show we've got coming up as well on Friday. We will be going live towards the end. We're not crazy of the Scotland and Germany game. That is the game on Friday, isn't it? We'll be doing the Ask Grapple. I say we're not crazy. Me and Matty will still be doing the weekend show, so I'm sure we're gonna cut into it in some form. But yeah, come join us. Listen to or watch the last half an hour of the game on one screen. Listen to us and have a few drinks with us on a Friday. Trying to turn it into a quarterly thing ish over on the Patreon for YouTube members as well. So if you do have any questions about retro TNA, anything like that, you can throw it at us, JP.
Yeah, exactly. Throw them all at us as well, and then no doubt there'll be some absolute sort of wacky belting ones in there as well at the same time. Love an Ask Grapple. Love getting around to this stuff. So yeah, if you want to get along to that, if you want to become a member, also on month gone, we've got like big beefy fuckers playlist coming up as well. Loads and loads of stuff. So all of that goodness, patreon.com/grapple, or become a YouTube member by going to youtube.com/@grapple.
There you go. You got all of that going on there as well. But yeah, on that note, we will get into the weekend in wrestling going on. All the plugs are out of the way. Mikey says here, TNA's been around longer than ECW, WCW, and Smoky Mountain combined. Yep. Time will do that to you.
Yeah.
I mentioned to the bloke doing my inspection in my flat today that I've worked in the same job for 17 years, and he literally said to me, he was like, bloody hell, did you start when you're 12? And I was like, no, and I turn 40 next week. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. I think I've been in that job probably less time than TNA has existed as a promotion as well. It's terrifying. I still remember, I think we did the month one, didn't we? Yeah, they launched on like maybe my 21st birthday, I think. Terrifying.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember that, and I remember recording that as well. And my God, that was like all over the place at that period of time. Like, those first few TNAs, which we did, obviously, it's one of the archived shows that we did of month one. And obviously, you've just recorded month gone in terms of the final nitros as well. So we're not going to get that for TNA for a while. Still seems to be knocking around the place, much like all other companies.
Well, yeah, on that note, speaking of which, we should get into the weekend in wrestling. And yeah, first up, we need to talk a few news bits. We've got some reviews to come as well. I did suffer through a bit of New Japan this week, even a full NXT pay-per-view as well. But we'll start with the news before we do get into all that stuff. And yeah, first place to start, JP, over in WWE. What's going on with Ricochet right now? I presume when we get into the review stuff, you didn't watch Raw from last night, or did you at least see the him in hitting the side of the truck, Rey Mysterio and Kevin Nash style? Didn't go through a window in the suggestion of Rey Mysterio, unfortunately. Did Ricochet? But fuck me, did they send a message? Imagine he turns up on Dynamite this week now. If he just turns around and completely no sells what they did on Raw to write him off, could happen. As apparently, yeah. Oh, go on, JP.
He'll have to come out with Jimmy Hart then. In that case, that would be like the perfect way to kind of like complete that circle, wouldn't it? For that, because that was the only thing that I saw. It's very old fashioned. In some ways, I appreciate it. It's like when Taya Valkyrie got arrested in TNA. Do you remember that? And they dragged her off and went, "Where's she going? Which prison is she going to?"
Yeah.
Well, I think she could be going to Florida, or she might be going up north as well, and that prison can be really horrible at times. And I thought that was actually quite clever, bless him. So
Yeah.
I
Should
kind
have
of
spray painted
enjoy this
AEW on his back. That's what they should have done. That's the way to do it. Oh yeah, maybe he could, as Chris Elliott says here, come into AEW, bust that out of an ambulance. Or it wouldn't shock me if he ends up on Clash of the Castle and they just do a match at that point with him and Bron Breakker. But we think it's a shoot. What happened? Well, not the throwing into the side of a lorry, but the story with Ricochet. As according to Mike Johnson from PW Insider, multiple sources have confirmed that Ricochet gave notice to the WWE, tends to leave the company when his contract expires this summer, and he's going to be obviously written out of storylines, and obviously he had that episode of WWE Speed where he lost the Speed title to Andrade as well. Kind of goes back a little bit as well to obviously that Will Ospreay interview that we mentioned a couple of weeks, and I was saying at the time, seems unlikely that Ospreay would be so gung ho about mentioning Ricochet and his potential of coming over to AEW if he didn't maybe just have a little inkling of something. And yeah, of course, in the subsequent weeks, subsequent days, Dave Meltzer has pretty much, with some slight differences, backed up Mike Johnson's report, and then Fightful as well. Were doing the same report and saying they were expecting that angle that we got on Raw last night, and unless something changes, he's very likely on his way out. But so is the question, positive first, JP, is one, do you believe it? I wonder if probably that Raw angle does confirm it for us. But two, do you want to see it, Ricochet in AEW, because that has to be where he's headed next.
It has to be the landing spot. I'm not sure if it is. I'm sure it's going to be shared, because I'm also kind of convinced he's going to end up in New Japan, just with the previous history, just the fact that they could really fucking use someone like him, just being put into the mix as well. But as this story, it feels like the confirmation's kind of set in place at this point that that he is going to be leaving, and the fact that he is off, because he's not being. It's not like Chad Gable, whereby he's in a prominent position. It's like, what is he doing? He's spinning his heels for something that's meant as effectively a piece of synergy with X of just having the Speeds title on there, but it doesn't have any meaning or anything else. It just exists as like a kind of like a glorified dark match. It's under 3 minutes. So, like, what are they doing with him? But he will end up in AEW, and he'll end up. I could see him just doing a bit of both. That's where I think he will end up on there. Do they need him? I mean, do I want to say, at least I like him, like in the main, in terms of his work. I'm curious to see if he's going to go back to kind of old Ricochet, or is it just what version of him we're going to get? So I reserve the right to be bored quite quickly as well. I'm not entirely sure, like, it'll be something I'll go absolutely mad about, but it's where's he fitting in AEW?
I think if you Ricochet, you probably make the move. Like, I've got no. It's a bit like Claudio. Like, I'll always say that, and it's one of those rare times where me and Matty will agree on a wrestler. Claudio is a very good in-ring wrestler. There were loads of individual stories in WWE where they should have done like a better job of telling those stories with Claudio. There was definitely like some small crimes. There was never any major crime, though. He was never really at a lower point in WWE for me than where he should be. I think he was slotted about right in the roster. He's come over to AEW. You could argue he's slightly higher in the pecking order than he was in WWE, but not really as he was towards the end. He's having better matches, and there's maybe a little bit more sense to what he's doing compared to that version of it if WWE was in. But largely, he's in a better place, and largely he seems happier, in himself. And I think if you Ricochet, I'd probably be saying the same thing if the shoe was on the other foot and he was in AEW and he ran his course in AEW and WWE. This version of WWE wanted him. A change of scenery, if you're Trevor Man himself, makes sense, especially when Will Ospreay's doing so well in AEW, especially when stylistically AEW makes so much more sense for a wrestler like Ricochet. The shackles will be off a little bit more. He will be able to show even more what he can do, and just in general, the importance on the content of the matches themselves is a lot more important in AEW than it is WWE. So a wrestler like him is just naturally gonna be better suited. So from his point of view, yeah. For me, AEW though, like same for everybody. Do they have the room? No. Like, will they actually get more value out of them than they would if they pushed, I don't know, any of the 20 wrestlers you could probably name that are in that mushy mid card of AEW right now? Probably not. Are they going to make a penny more? Probably not. It reminds me of the Kevin Owens conversation we had when Kevin Owens' contract was up, and I was actually quite high on Kevin Owens coming over to WWE. And Garrett's argument was always like, is he going to draw them a penny more? And I was like, well, he's got his fans, he's going to sell some t-shirts. But actually, in reality, yeah, he probably would have just been another wrestler in AEW, like every other wrestler is in AEW, and he's going to go into that factory of having pretty good matches on Collision and Rampage, and every now and then he'll have a banger on Dynamite, and it's like, that's cool, but every now and again, Orange Cassidy has a banger on Dynamite, Phoenix has a banger on Dynamite, Commander can have a banger on Dynamite, Takeshita, Jay White, wrestlers like that who are struggling to get a look in with a focused push. Like, is it really worth it if I'm AEW? I just say no. But I'm not AEW, and Tony Khan is AEW, and Tony Khan is absolutely going to say yes. So it makes sense for Ricochet, and he's going to believe it makes sense to him, because what does Tony Khan love more than a big debut?
That's it. And it's going to happen. And there's enough people backstage. And there's some matches that you think, oh, it'd be good. Him versus Danielson comes to mind. Okay, that'd be really good, like with the shackles off and everything.
And you can do the Ospreay match, can't you? You can go back to round.
Obviously, yeah. Like you can go around to that. You can go to that like a few times. Like you would say, there is like interesting in-ring matchups. But as you've kind of hit the nail on the head, the problem is we are delivered so much kind of good TV, and there's always like a certain amount of like flyers in there, like proper flyers. There is the point of like, are we going to be at the point where he has toned that stuff down? It sounds incredible because obviously he's been there for 6 years. Like, it's a hell of a run, and in that time, like, I can't, like, how many distinctive Ricochet matches do you remember?
I was about to say, you read my mind. I was going to ask you, name a Ricochet match. I'd struggle harder than naming 5 great Regal matches. Name 5 great Ricochet matches in WWE. Name 5, just name 5.
Yeah. Like,
NXT you go back to?
He did his stuff in NXT, but he was kind of toned down, and he was like, and stare in this direction at the red dot, mate. Like, there was a bit more of that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, that cool dive with John Morrison, remember that? In the MT Arena Raw era when he did the dive over the barrier. I think they remember that. That's all I remember. John Morrison, AEW superstar, by the way, to the point.
And it's probably just for recency bias. It's the match against Logan Paul where I thought, oh, this might be good, and then it wasn't. And it was like, it felt like it was more on the disappointing end. Like his match with The Miz, I preferred more than the match with Ricochet. And that's something that is heretical almost to say. But that was the kind of truth. It was a really quite nondescript run. Did he even get the NXT title? No, I think it was the North American Championship was as high as he kind of got there. It felt like he was signed at the time. Like it was almost to keep him away from AEW, if you think of the kind of, or like what else was kind of ongoing. It was a way of hoarding talent. They kind of held on to him. The problem is where he kind of like you mentioned with AEW and where he fits into it. He's not enough of a character, I think, to kind of like think, all right, or maybe there's something undiscovered and we never saw it with him. But if he didn't do it in WWE, I'm pretty determined it's not like he's had the shackles held on him the entire time. He's just not that kind of a wrestler. And weirdly, they're the kind of guys they might well need more than another guy who's kind of good in the ring.
Yeah, that's it. And let us know in the comments. I'm sure Matty will on the Discord. Top 5 Ricochet matches in WWE. I know there's been like the odd Raw match where it's been, that was above the average level. But broadly speaking, AEW is the type. If he was around when AEW was launching, he'd be perfect for that. He was never a great fit in WWE. He's been used better recently. It felt like he had a little bit more to do, and it felt like he probably would have had a nice little push, even if a lot of that might have happened on WWE speed. But he had that little quarter on Raw where he'd have his nice little match, and they definitely gave him a little bit more pride of place than he's had in the past. But doesn't shock me he's on the way out if it does turn out to be true. Chad Gable staying doesn't shock me either. That's the other one if we're talking contract season. Obviously, once the day they announced the Clash at the Castle match, it was all right. Well, he's staying, isn't he? It seems pretty clear at this point that he's going to be remaining with WWE. And he should do. I watched Raw this week, and I haven't really got much to say about Raw or SmackDown. Basically, that will be a very brief segment. Although I did stay up for the majority of Raw last night. Don't ask me why, JP. But I was tidying. It was like a thing to have on in the background very, very late at night. But we have had somewhat confirmation that Chad Gable's going to be sticking around. PW Insider again are saying that they're under belief he's either extremely close or has come to terms with WWE and will continue on with the company. He's another one. Stylistically, at least from an in-ring point of view, I actually could have seen him fitting in AEW at a certain point in time, especially if in an alternate universe, Jason Jordan was still wrestling, was available. You probably could have done something there as well. But he's someone where I'm like, no, he should stay in WWE. He's doing the best work of his run by far. It's come at the perfect time for them, because they had him doing the Shorty G thing, and they had him doing very little, pretty much, for his entire run. Remember when he was supposed to be Kurt Angle's illegitimate son, and they gave that to Jordan instead? Like, how great would you have been with that gimmick? We're kind of seeing that playing out on air now, with the Otis stuff and the Sami Zayn stuff, which I know is not going to be for everyone, but it's a very well done version of that, like Frankenstein's monster type story, and he's the evil genius behind it all. Like, for him, it'd be a terrible time, I think, to walk away from WWE, as long as the offer's good. And, like the Monday Night Wars, if you can use both sides against each other and get that better offer, which I'd imagine he's probably done, then with all said and done, staying with WWE is probably the only move for him, I'd say, right now.
You'd hope that that's exactly what he's done. And it's, like I say, it's the only move. He's one of their guys. He works their style. He does all of the things that they want him to do. And he seems to be, in the main, like, popular backstage, and he's 38. Like, there comes a point where it's just like, what you'd hope is, obviously this time around he's got the leverage, which he wouldn't have had perhaps at other times in the past. Like, obviously I'm assuming he's coming to the end of like a very long-term deal, like kind of 5 years and the rest of it. So, like, is there potential? He's also working within a booking system where his size isn't going to work against him. That's the impression I get with all of this. We have moved well and truly past that, which means he can be somewhat of a player. And do I see them giving him a punt to a main event of a PLE? You go, yeah. If you're doing like a lesser, like, kind of run one, and you have him in the main event, you kind of go, you can have be like AJ Styles to a certain degree. You can have a decent match, and he's over enough where he's going to get a response from the crowd. So therefore, it ticks all of the easy boxes. So I think for him, he's definitely in the right place, and it would have been madness to go. If he'd gone to AEW, we would have been talking about like how horribly it would have gone. Because if we're talking about Ricochet being lost in the shuffle, like Jesus Christ, they'd have to change his name and everything. It'd have gone bloody awfully.
Indeed. Well, that's kind of him, and surprisingly, the other contract story we've got to talk about. Like I say, Monday Night Wars are back. Who knows what's going on? There was even a rumor that apparently some people in WWE are working without contracts. No specifics on that, but there's some odd things going on over there. But they're at least the ones we know, as far as the ones that were on the line of possibly leaving. Coming in though, JP, it's your boy Hikuleo, the man whose name I will never remember how to spell. Where does the U go? Where does the E go? Maybe I'll figure it out by the time he gets his SmackDown push. As Hikuleo has apparently finished up with New Japan. We're going to talk some Dominion later on. But yeah, believed to be joining WWE. It was reported this is from bodyslam.net. That his contract was set to expire sometime this year, and after Dominion at the weekend, it looked like he was done with the company. And Casty Haynes has confirmed that that is the case, and his final date was Dominion, and it is believed that he's going to be joining his family in the current Bloodline story. Did you see that happening? I saw that story and thought, well, it'll be a good little NXT run for him. But like when they brought Solo worked NXT while the Bloodline story was going on main roster. I almost thought they might do that, but he has come along to an extent, Hikuleo. I know he's somebody like the Rev Pro and generally seem to be quite high on when he's been over here, and he's definitely developed as a wrestler since his stints over here as well. Can't do worse than Tangaloa, so maybe that's a little thing he's got going for him as well. But yeah, I kind of thought NXT, but sounds like possibly main roster. It'd be a bit of a shock to see him immediately show up on a SmackDown, or even like a PLE like pay-per-view, sorry, to turn into Bully Ray, Clash at the Castle at the weekend.
I think he is going to turn up on main roster as well. I mean, I think he's come along to a degree. He's better than Tangaloa, like that much. I would confidently throw out at this stage. He's shown much more.
I'll give him a chance, JP.
Yeah. Oh, well, no. Like, I think I had years of that stuff with Gorillas of Destiny.
He's had his chances.
He has
Plenty
had
of,
his chance.
including in WWE. He already had a chance in WWE. Talk a lot.
Bless me. You see what he's done? He's made me sneeze. Made a hay fever come through. Whereas Hikuleo's got the size. And if you're looking for an enforcer figure to have in it to make them seem like a real threat, then it makes sense because he's a bigger body in the room. Why they haven't done anything with Jacob Fatu while all of this is going on is the thing that kind of like, it's like, there's a guy I'm actually genuinely interested to see if he can appear on, if he's going to appear on TV. So, you know, I think
is
like,
it because all the pay-per-views have been abroad? Maybe like I haven't even seen it speculated by Jacob Fatu. Really, that it's just been stum, hasn't it? As to the wise. Obviously, he's not going to be coming out to Scotland, and there isn't really a match that would make sense for that. He probably isn't going to be going. If that's the case, he won't be in Toronto for Money in the Bank. Like, you've got to bring him in at some point. Like, it'd probably just have to be a TV, wouldn't it? Although, based on last week's SmackDown, they don't really care about SmackDown anymore. So, don't know where you put that big moment.
yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, like, SummerSlam feels too big, and it feels like almost too long. Having him go in and work in the Performance Center may not be the worst thing in the world. It's whether or not does it end. Like, I think with him at least, you have the option because he is very, very young. That you have time, and that time is going to be the thing I think that really works on like his side in terms of his like long-term ability. Because I'm not going to go into the New Japan review now. I was kind of like keeping an eye on him, and I was like, he's okay. Like, that would be as far as I go. But he doesn't like completely shit the bed, so he would be competent. And it's his size that they want, and it's the lineage. Like he ticks those boxes. But yeah, they can have him. Same time, it's the right place for him to be.
Samoan tongue and same things as WWE. Apparently, we make it work. Yeah, but be an odd one to see him fit in. But he's another one though. WWE style is probably going to be better for him. It's probably the type of place where a tall, lanky wrestler like him will probably learn more to lean into those side of things, and they'll want to protect him and make his in ring as basic and probably boring to the likes as it could be. But they'll be wanting to get that character over. So yeah, I guess time will tell on that. And yeah, while we're on WWE, what's your excitement level going into the weekend with Clash? We won't have you on the weekend preview this weekend. It's gonna be being Matty, but I imagine you're gonna be staying up with snacks on Saturday night, JP. Like I'm sure you did for Battleground at the weekend.
Oh, of course I did, mate. Staying up for that on a Sunday night to watch that. Yeah, be all over it. But this one is probably going to be the novelty of watching it and seeing like what the place is going to be like, which I expect is going to be basically mental. Because there's also a pissing contest element between fans. I think at this stage, I think it's going to be the same way in Berlin. Which of these? It's like Jeremy Borash's dream come true. Which of these fans are going to be the rowdiest? And they all go fucking berserk, and they all start singing, and they all want a T-shirt shot at a cannon.
I don't know. Well. Shoot that Rangers knockoff T-shirt at the wrong fan in that crowd, and it might kick off in the wrong way. Don't know the market there. Don't know Glasgow. Do they very well? I hate that. I hate when American companies come over and it's like they'll run a show in Liverpool and like the babyface will come out of Liverpool top, and half the audience, or more than half, I would say, in Liverpool is going to boo them out the building. Or so I went to loads of Manchester house shows where babyfaces would come out in Man United tops and get booed. I'd be like, Exeter City fans here. Imagine that, but like Scotland, where that type of partisan stuff really fucking matters. They should be careful trying to flog them. There's gonna be some knobhead tourist who's gonna be wandering around Glasgow with a blue WWE Clash top on in the wrong part of town. I would shock if we get a couple of stories like that at the weekend. Jesus.
And it looks shit as well. So like it's like not only like if you were a Rangers fan, you'd hardly be excited about that. As well, but it's a shocking piece of merch. It's almost going back to like the kind of toothless aggression type days.
I think they had didn't they have a Gala shirt? I shouldn't remember this because why would I remember anything about Gallus? Like I've got more followers on Twitter than Mark Gallus, whatever his name is. But like they had one where it was like a green and white striped like Celtic variation as well. Flog some of them. Maybe they could go 50-50. Definitely don't do half and half. No half and half scarves. But you know, you could probably do something. Do you reckon they'll get on the show? Do you reckon I reckon it's more likely. I'll put this out to the bet. More likely Joe Henry gets a look in a Clash of the Castle than Gallus do. I would piss myself if Gallus don't get even like a dark match on this pay-per-view. Like, would it surprise you? Like, I don't know. I'm saying that it surprises me they're still employed, so I haven't watched Battleground. Somehow they still are.
I'm wondering at what point, like you would have thought this is the whole point of them training The Rock if they weren't going to be getting some kind of an appearance at this. I fear that SmackDown might be the route they go in, which they might end up being annoyed as well because they might be thinking, "Well, fucking hell, I want to be watching Scotland, Germany, and the Euros at the same time if they're into the football." So that's going to be like hilarious if they're doing SmackDown at the same time. But again, yeah, I mean, this is like I suppose we're kind of burying the lead with this, but like it's the fact that it still hasn't sold out is the thing that's even more astonishing about all of this.
On Raw last night, there was an advert. It was like, "Get your tickets now," and it was a link to WWE.com. Tells you something, didn't it? Like they were acting like, "Oh, guess what, guys? There's still tickets on sale." Like trying to spin it into a positive, but like it is absolutely a story. Yeah,
it is, isn't it? I mean, and you know, cash at the castle. That's what it is. It's a money grab. That's what they're looking to do. That's what they're looking to get from it. And it also makes sense why they've kind of now stacked the card. Like the card for this is not the card that they did in Leon or anything else like along those lines. This is a lot more kind of there's a you know, in terms of like doing Sami Zayn, Chad Gable there, that feels like that's quite a big call to do that there as well. Obviously you've got the Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, but having the Cody Rhodes match where they might have gotten away with not needing that necessarily. I mean, it feels like they want this show to kind of like sell out, and I'm sure they will manage it in the end. But surely the bigger lesson would be there's only a certain extent that you can charge for all of these shows. Like they can't make this to the point where like you are at that point pricing out families, and I always think that's one of the biggest risks you do, particularly when it comes to like house shows and whatnot. And these are the shows that matter.
Yeah, that's it. And there's going to be young fans who are, wanting to be there, and you are pricing out those types of families, aren't you? At the point that you're doing that. I'm just trying to see if we have like the latest numbers. I can't see a more recent WrestleTix figure on it, but does seem to still be that kind of that inner circle, those more expensive ones in the main kind of around the ring area, i.e. the really fucking expensive ones that just still aren't shifting. Do some goodwill, give them out to some families in the community or something like that in Scotland. I don't know. Maybe you could
some Celtic fans as a makeup.
Meanwhile, he makes a good point. We were just doing the TNA flashback, looking at Aces and Eights. They were selling out arenas all up and down the UK. So who wins there, WWE or TNA? But yeah, I don't know on the card. To be honest, like I'm kind of with you. It's stacked by their standards because they don't. They really, it's an underreported thing, but like I really think WWE taking the foot off the gas, like purposely right now. Like I watched all Raw last night, and well, majority of it until like the last half hour when I fell asleep, and caught up a little bit on it today. And like Raw hasn't got a main event star right now. It's got a lot of really over upper mid card acts. Maybe it's got some main event heels, but it hasn't really got any main event baby faces. And the Raw rating that's been down a little bit over the last while, I think is representing that, because you've got Cody doing SmackDown for the majority of the time. The Bloodline story is happening over on SmackDown as well. And Raw's kind of like this 3-hour show where, they're just kind of getting by, and they've got the hot Chad Gable angle, which is a weird sentence to say going on right now. That's kind of getting them through it. But they do feel a little bit like it's almost a purposeful decision. And I think the pay-per-views, I insist on calling these PLEs, like are kind of representing that as well, where it's a lot of like, I saw somebody joke, SummerSlam's going to be 2 nights. Oh, nice one. Paul Levesque will be like 4 matches per night. He's just like, he's a little bit miserly, I think, and a little bit like, we saw this with his NXT book, and a little bit slow and steady, and a little bit like, well, it's not SummerSlam season, it's not WrestleMania season right now, so we don't have to go crazy, because there were stories that they were thinking of even holding off on Cody and AJ for Money in the Bank in Toronto, which would have been madness, because then you'd be left with, yes, the hometown Drew versus Damian Priest match, but yeah, Bayley, Piper Niven, another hometown match. Sami Zayn and Chad Gable, absolutely hot right now, but then outside that, all you've got is that women's tag team triple threat. It's hardly, it's again stacked by kind of what they're doing at the minute and the low period they're in right now, but Yeah, it is missing, key figures. It is missing anything to do with the Bloodline, which is the focus of SmackDown right now. If they were really serious about it, they'd probably, beating you over the head with the fact that CM Punk might be there, folks. CM Punk might be there, folks. For Clash of the Castle weekend, they're not really doing that. If anything, Drew was shutting that down on Raw, unless they're trying to work with that. So yeah, on the one hand it is. On the other hand, I don't know. Right now, it does feel like they're maybe not putting the best foot forward because they probably think they can get away with it with these international shows.
I think that's it, and it's what they have done, and I'm sure they're going to be doing the same at Bash in Berlin. Like that feels like, if that is the name of that show, I feel like I've got that wrong, but it feels like a kind of what should be called. But I think that's what they're going to end up doing. And
hometown babyface in the main, and then some all right matches underneath it. Maybe one hot angle. That's it.
And Cody loves to do this kind of stuff. So we'll put Cody out there on the road because the other guys don't want to go out on the road as much. But it does. That is the problem with it, is this is kind of like very by the numbers. And if you're following it for the PLEs, like I do, and I don't watch Raw and SmackDown outside of isolated clips, you kind of just see a company kind of in stasis. And these last few shows are them going through the motions. And because they can go through the motions, they can get away with it. But we are at the point with this where you start to notice it and go, well, is this absolutely essential viewing? Probably not. But it'll be in canon in the same way that the Leon card in for Backlash was, but like not much else.
Sorry, I just popped myself because I just refreshed the page. WrestleTix 1 minute ago have done an update on Clash of the Castle tickets.
Oh,
it's like up to the minute, up to the TV.
Go for
literally
it.
1 minute ago. So there's not that many available. Current setup 11,119. Tickets distributed 10,512. Still 607 tickets available in that configuration. And when you look at the map, it is pretty much still that same, more expensive kind of ring there. I looked because Dylan mentioned there. Apparently, they've been slashing prices. That might explain a little bit of movement there. Still not a sellout, but yeah, apparently prices down by 25% this afternoon. There you go. Hot off the presses. That update just came through as well. Can they shift those last tickets? Yeah, 100 a day maybe between now and then. It'll be more than that. 150 a day. Could they do that? Maybe with a walk up. I don't know, but is a walk up crowd going to pay that price? Still, but they're clearly putting all hands on deck.
Yeah, Drew McIntyre needs to be like around, like all over the telly of the next week. That needs to be him doing all of that stuff if they can do it. I think they will sell out in the end. They'll do the upgrades and things like that, so they'll make sure that they move people into place and then sell those other ones at the back. I think ultimately they will do, but the fact they've had to make hard work of this would be the kind of thing that shouldn't be hard work, but it really is, and that's. And that's not like there's a point where they might well have reached their peak, but this is there in the ultra TKO mode, and we've got to get used to this, where everything is about money. Everything is about money.
Indeed. Well, there we go. Yeah, so yeah, it's 500 tickets they've shifted in the last week since that last update. I had so still not quite hot ticket numbers, but maybe getting a little bit closer. Let's see if they do shift that last 600 odd tickets. Otherwise, yeah, there will be a lot of people outside the venue, maybe looking for a cheapie. But outside of that, should move on with WWE matters. Might as well we'll do quickly the Battleground thoughts here. I did have as a lead-in story, JP, and it's already, again, speaking of breaking news, the goalposts have changed today, as apparently Booker T, in typical Booker T talking shit speak, said that his WWE contract is coming up very soon, only to clarify today that no, he's actually got 5 years left on his deal, so he's probably just lying, is basically what we found there. And I was hoping for a small bit of mercy there, because he was the fucking... there's people out there who rate Booker T as a commentator. There's people out there who find him funny. One of them being Shawn Michaels. He was death on that Battleground show that I watched on Sunday for me sins. How did he not have a young, fresh heel commentator waiting in the wings, or analyst, or whatever his role is these days? Why is it still Booker T? I was really hopeful that that story was going to be true.
Any number of producers in that place, can one of them play as a heel commentator? That would I pray for that, because I don't know what the stuff he says. It's so meandering. I just he's white noise. Whereas Vic Joseph is very much he's a real polished machine. I'm surprised he's not main roster, to be honest with you. But
Mm.
because he is everything they kind of want. And I know obviously he was for a period of time.
And they sent him back.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, I assume Booker T taking the piss for this one as well. But then he takes the piss when he's at work. Like when he's on those pre-show panels, he was just like horrible as well. He's not that much on Who Killed WCW. He's in it a little bit on there. I'm expecting him to kick off later on that as well. But yeah, he's bullshitting with his contract. God love him.
Well, we're about to get it. We'll talk Battleground briefly because it's almost a lead into AEW this week because there is a little bit of a worrying trend there for the big AEW fans like me and you, big boosters of AEW JP. As it does feel like maybe this week might be the week that NXT even beats them in the demo. But we'll get into that in a little bit and the little dirty tricks that NXT are pulling tonight to make that so. But for the first time in a while, NXT did feel newsworthy going into Battleground. I said it on the Discord, like maybe the last 3 or 4 NXT like events I've gone into going, yeah, go on, I'll give them a chance again, and then come out of it going, I don't get it. It's all shiny. It's like a fucking overly sugary drink. It's just fucking empty calories. It's just fucking colours and fucking. I know it's not NXT 2.0 anymore, but the presentation is just so fucking nauseous, and like the characters are just so. Maybe they're just so young for me, JP. Maybe that's why they're doing so well in the demo. Well, they didn't do as well last week as they did the week before, but they're appealing to. It's not for people like me, and I think sometimes you've got to. We've said that many times on these podcasts. Sometimes a wrestler product just isn't for us, but isn't it great if it's for somebody, and if it works for other people, go for it. You see people extremely excited about NXT in any given week, and this pay-per-view is probably the most where I've seen. I would call the normies like us a little bit paying attention, where it was like, oh, Ethan Page is coming in. That's quite interesting. I think most people seem to have a little bit of a soft spot for Ethan Page. Jordan Grace coming in obviously got a lot of headlines as well. It felt like they had a little bit of a buzz going in, so I couldn't help myself but watch it, and I thought it was fine. Maybe just on the disappointing end with especially the Ethan Page matches, the main event definitely felt a little bit unnotable as a way to go off the air. But yeah, I found it to be pretty much what I expected going in. That sugary, empty calorie drink of just a lot of young, mostly female talent doing moves they've got no business doing in shiny multi-person matches. A lot of spotty matches, to be honest. I said that again on the Discord. More spots on this NXT show, and more spotty indie style matches on this NXT show than you tend to see in a given week's AEW program. And for what it was, it kind of washed over me. Oh, it's all right. I had an all right time watching it. But I still came out of it going. At the same time, though, can't imagine ever watching this NXT TV show on a weekly basis. This one-off event will do for me. God help me in Toronto on that heat wave. I think is the show coming up there that I'm possibly
going to be
right. Maybe I got swept into it and I'll become an NXT Ultra, but probably not based on the evidence from Sunday night. But yeah, it was all right, JP.
Yeah, do you know what it was? The first bit on here is it's a bit of a letdown. I think on the weekend show, I was kind of cautiously optimistic. Oh, we'll get 2 good matches. And it'll be interesting because it's different people who are there. And it adds a different dynamic. And the Jordan Gray stuff is very, very newsworthy, if nothing else. And obviously all of the various ways that people think of the direction. But in many ways, I was watching this and I felt like it was watching a TNA pay-per-view, frankly, at this point where it's just like, is there the potential for it to be better than what it is? Yes. Is it ever going to be like that? Probably not. Are there people from here going to end up being stars and meaning something? Yeah, they will do, like the law of averages. And I think that's really where the interest almost lies. But I don't know if that's a good enough, for this one to watch, what was a series of, at best, 3.25 3-star matches that were just kind of bang average, produced in front of a place. Where I was just like, why don't you just run the performance center? Why are you here? It's like a
the Apex was weird, wasn't it?
Apparently,
I saw all MMA fans on Twitter being like, "Oh, I wish when the UFC was there, it had an atmosphere as good as this." I was like, "Fucking hell, how bad's the atmosphere on the UFC shows? It must be really fucking bad then. It must be grim watching those shows." Jesus.
Don't emerge. It's not as good for TV. They've got the performance center down to a fine art for what it is. And I think it holds a few more people, but not that many more for it to be really worthwhile. And it lost something. because you've got people who aren't as invested in the product, obviously, and that's the thing you always hear about, like with NXT. I mean, God, I was watching kind of clips for it, but yeah, I didn't like that venue at all there. But this was like, it feels like this is what it is going to be for a while. They've just had a load of people get called up. Everything, there's a lot of in the main kind of like green acts, and then they'll throw people down like the OC, but it doesn't really mean anything. Like in Shayna Baszler, like they'll do stuff like that, but ultimately it's there just to get some kind of like use out of them. And so I was watching this, I was quite bored, I have to say, and I was let down by like Ethan Page in the main event. He had an Ethan Page match.
Yeah. It's one of the. I find it hard. I wouldn't use the term, for me, I wouldn't use the terminology let down, because I know Ethan Page and I like Ethan Page, and I think he's a good promo and a good character, and he's going to fit in well in this TV. Obviously, the bloom isn't off the rose yet. They put him in this position because clearly they're high on him, and there'll be more to do. But yeah, I almost. Trick Williams just isn't very good yet. Very charismatic, very over.
Yeah.
But Ethan Page probably wasn't the guy to get more out of him. I was more disappointed with how Trick Williams won, and then it was like, fake credits. That's the end of the show, folks. I thought there'd be maybe, I don't know what I was hoping for, like Ricky Starks to turn up or something. I don't know. But I was hoping for just something, a little bit more substantial. Maybe there'll be more of that on the TV. But it was like a very, I'm kind of like neutral debut for Ethan Page. More on the disappointing side because of how they handled it, but yeah, not really what they built up to your point as well. I thought Jordan Grace did a lot better. I thought Ox and Perez, which again blows my mind. That's Roxy of Weekend Show fame, whose name I felt like I read out for about 6 years until she eventually changed it when she went in the WWE system. Thought that was very good up until the very WWE finish. That was like head and shoulders above everything on the card. Like, I've got some positive to say about the Daft Ladder match earlier on, but like Jordan Grace just walked out there and I was like, wow, she's 10 stages ahead of pretty much everyone outside of maybe Roxanne Perez, who did keep up with her on this roster. Just, both in like an aura sense, both in a carried herself as a star sense, and just a work sense as well. Like, up until they had to do the nonsense finish, which didn't really protect her that well anyway. It was very Triple H and Taz ECW world title for me. Like, I think they could have done a little bit more to her to protect her. Ash by Elegance coming out, isn't that Dana? That line. I don't think that was a genius way to protect her. But up until that point, by far, the strongest match on the show. But with you on that.
Yeah, it was. And it was but like you say, I think the ending just left a kind of bad taste in my mouth, because it was just like, I mean, in many ways, I just wanted them. I thought it should have been the main event. It was something that had like a degree, even in its own small way, like unique way, a bit of historical significance. So you kind of wanted a bit of an epic. I just think that was the problem with the crowd, and it was there setting up, well, we want, Tatum Paxley, or she could be called Peyton Taxley. For all I know, really, it's just a name. Like, it's set her up, and Dana Brooke coming back in, who was barely gone, and I wasn't that bothered about in the first place. So I don't know why I'd be bothered about it now. It's just like her name in TNA is daft. Ash by Elegance. It's just rubbish. It's just like it is. It's absolute nonsense in there, and it's that kind of stuff rather than what could have been like a much better match. Which, even if Jordan Grace had lost, if it had been like a main event match, wrestled for like a good 25 minutes, had a bit of epic feel to it, main eventing the show, and she lost, I still think there would have been some kind of credit. I even would have probably forgiven.
It could have gone last easy.
Yeah.
With a better finish, could have gone last.
It would have been.
She got the TMZ headlines as well. Did you see that? WWE star Jordan Grace. That's how she was referred to. TNA's name did not come up once during any of TMZ's report, and they were reporting on it. It did look horrible when her earring came out. And they're saying she'll never wrestle in one again. Not laying anything from going this. I learned that in the swimming baths when I was about 11 when we used to go, and they make all the girls take the basins out. I don't know about doing a wrestling match with that in, but she apparently is a WWE star now, so she's signed and it's done according to TMZ. TNA couldn't even get that out of it, unfortunately. Couldn't even get their initials in the stories.
I mean, she should end up there. It's just a question of, I think by default, like, TNA has got no bargaining position here at all, and she's working through the end of her contract. So they take what they're given, and they're just going, well, if we get some exposure for it. But as all the time, anytime they end up chasing, like, bigger, wider exposure, as if the public are going to look on this and go, what is TNA wrestling? Well, we all better find out straight away, drop everything we're doing, and go into it. Every time, they never mention TNA. They never do. Whereas it's very, very different with WWE, and that's their press relations game and everything else that they're able to do.
As far as the undercard goes, I had some like kind of lightweight thoughts on like it was a very lightweight undercard. I found it an easy. Like I said, I don't have high expectations for NXT. Maybe that's why I'm not quite as negative as some on this show. Thought the women's ladder match was daft, and it was daft enough for me. That stupid inverted cutter thing that I think it's Sol Ruka does, like the backwards flip into a cutter. I'd watch that all day. That's proper like Special K early ROH 2002 stuff. Big fan of that spot, and she did it about 8 times in the match. She just spammed it like it was a video game. A lot of these the younger women in this
Big Slim J
this newfound NXT. Oh yeah, they seem to be watching their early ROH 2002 tapes. So thought that was a laugh. Thought Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I hadn't realised that a kid did, and Nathan Fraser had kind of gotten over as this tag team. Thought the OC put half a shift in. You're not getting more than 3 stars out of those 2 lads, but they were all right as a couple of bodies to put them over. So I didn't hate that. I thought the North American 3-way was a good laugh. Obafemi is someone who, again, speaking of early 2000s, I could imagine him being the one who comes in and beats up the entirety of Special K on his own. That's how he would have got used in the indies back then. There's clearly something with him, like obviously size-wise, but just style-wise as well. It's a lot of big power moves and a lot of showing of strength type stuff, rather than where's a big lad who can do forward rolls that you often see with big guys, many of which are in WWE and AEW right now. He's a big guy who is a big guy and does big guy shit. I can't help but pop for it. A lot of his spots and these 3-ways seem perfectly aligned to get that stuff over. So I like that, and he'd be a very, very different proposition if he if and when he makes it up to Raw or SmackDown. Just feel a little bit special if they can get the presentation right.
He does. I had a flashback to as another former NXT alumni when they did this same stuff with Big E. I think back in the day of like early NXT.
Was that FCW or was that NXT? Like it was that long ago?
It was NXT. It was the 5 count and stuff. That they did.
I've got 5. Yeah, that stuff. Yeah.
And it was like it was good, and then he came up and he was with Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee, so it was like, what the fuck is this all about as well? But there is because there's that through line between NXT, Raw and SmackDown. There isn't the mentality. There's a different mentality. You don't bring people up in order for them to fail. There is a point where like they're bringing people up in like with. And not trying to stitch them up at the same time and make them do things that like they're not capable of doing. So if he came up now, which would obviously be far too early, short squash matches, that would obviously be the route they would go. But then back in the day, there'd have been some bastard who told them to go like 15 minutes because he came from NXT. Like, you know what I mean? That kind of mentality is like,
which is interesting because they've done the reverse with Bron Breakker. I almost feel like that you'd expect him to come in and squash people, and instead he had like competitive match on Raw this week. Like it's kind of working, but it just shows, I think maybe work more to these guys' strengths at this point.
Yeah, and that through line is there. So you think when the call-ups happen, like as Ethan Page said in his promo, it makes it at least mean something, which then in turn makes these shows kind of mean something. But that doesn't always mean they're like. It doesn't mean that they're always like great, but they at least they do have a degree of meaning.
It's got a purpose, unlike, for example, ROH, which could fit that same. Like, there's better matches on ROH. Don't get me wrong, and the pay-per-views are better. But does ROH actually have a purpose? Not really. At least with NXT, the positive. I think the reason like a lot of people treat it with kid gloves and maybe don't go so harsh on it because it does feel like obviously you've got your main roster people who are sprinkled in, but it does feel like genuine developmental for the most part. It does feel like genuine experimentation. It does feel, even on top of that, to the point of this week's show, that they are trying to go for a different audience or a younger audience that are happy to watch the 6-way women's match where they're just spamming moves, are happy to see the shiny, very, very broad characters that aren't for grown-ups like me and you. Like I think I give it a little bit of leeway because it has that purpose there where I can watch it and go, that was all right, and I'll move on with my day, knowing that it's there for a reason. It's there I'd say it's in a much better place having gone through the NXT 2.0 stuff and come out this end doing this version of NXT than trying to carry on doing, in an AEW world, the old version of NXT. Like, there's a lot of one of the other problems of trying to watch the show live on Sunday. A lot of adverts and a lot of promo material for the old NXT. Like, there was a Finn Balor video that lasted about 10 minutes. There was something with, I'm sure, Samoa Joe turned up that was all kinds. Like, it was proper old school. Kevin Owens had another one as well. I was watching it going, fuck, wasn't that a different time and place? But in a way, I actually think this NXT is probably not a better product, but a better concept, even if the execution doesn't work for me, for just that overall like ecosystem, to the point you just made. So maybe that's why I give it a little bit of both a wide berth, and I'm a little bit charitable towards it, although they do push it when you have angles like Gallus beating up Wesley on this show, which is, speaking of the TNA relationship, I presume the Rascals are coming in, so you're gonna get your dream match, JP, the Rascals versus Gallus. So they also push it with some of the talent that they do choose to use.
They do, and maybe all in all of this, and we haven't mentioned her, and it does lead nicely into the next story, but Sexy Red, who I know nothing about as well. Maybe that she's one of the people who are kind of like drawing in these big numbers and stuff when they're kind of like stacking the show up there. Because she was also I love the album The Best of Sexy Red, or Sexy Red playlist that is available on Spotify. I think that's my favorite one. But by all accounts, and this is probably, she was well up for it at NXT. Why? Because she was arrested the day before for disorderly conduct at Newark Liberty International Airport, which feels like an airport that you would have flown into.
Last time I came back from New York. Yeah. That's where I'm flying to in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So don't get into any scraps, mate. That would be the main thing I'd avoid on there. And it was obviously on film because it appeared on like TMZ and the rest of it. But it was she was seen standing on and waving around a stand, which I'm not quite sure what that sentence means. I probably need to see all of the footage on there as well. But yeah,
it doesn't look like the footage like.
Oh no, she's waving it like Conor McGregor did. Oh right, now and I get it there. It's like she'll get it.
I mean,
just
this is kind of what
she'll
you
be
get.
fine.
Like Sexy Red's like someone I might hear saying, "What's a Sexy Red?" Again, not for our generation, unfortunately. Through like in hip hop broadly, I do know she is, and I have unfortunately heard their song "Pound Town." Look that up, folks. You'll enjoy lyrics. And she is like she's one of them. She's more meme than she is actual rapper, is how I'd put it. Like she's more like Instagram celebrity, more like just general news story. And this type of news story is not unexpected. I would say it's a bit odd that it's coming on the way to an NXT show, and I've seen a couple of the news outlets run with because there was a picture, wasn't there, of Jordan Grace and Shawn Michaels in his chef hat, his Chef Shawn hat that Jordan Grace got him knocking around as well. So that's probably not the type of publicity you want, but it does again appeal to a certain demo, and she is somebody that I'm told, JP, the youngs are very into. Sexy Red. Dimitar Berbatov was a Sexy Red, Mikey says. As was Eric Cantona. I agree. Sean apparently loves it. I'm sure Sean listens to all her albums and has banged into it as well. Yeah, lost on us, but she wouldn't fit on AEW. She wouldn't fit on main roster WWE. No. But NXT, you can kind of get away with it, and they did, and they probably still will, despite this negative news story.
And she still probably had an absolutely cracking weekend out in Vegas as well. Afterwards as well, Sunday night she was offering it out to Kalani Jordan, wasn't she? After she won the ladder match, it's like we'll go out in Vegas and that. I did think to myself at the time, I thought, I bet you're probably berserk if you're going out there as well. And, she drew a big rating last week. Guess what they're doing this week, mate? Well, we have on deck, we've got exactly, for the next episode of NXT. You brought this up he teased making an appearance, but Cody Rhodes is going to be there. He's going to be live on NXT this Tuesday. I know he said Wednesday. The old day on it. And you're going to see some old friends, i.e., pop that rating and win that demo on there as well. And it was, I'm assuming if it's him and Ethan Page, we're going to get some quite nice, snidey AEW style promos into the mix, aren't we? It feels very set up for it. Will I watch it? Yeah.
I do think I'm quite bullish on NXT winning the demo this week. The winning overall viewers. we're gonna get into AEW. We're using this as our lead into AEW because there isn't much AEW to talk this week, and Dynamite this week doesn't look hugely stacked. It doesn't feel like they're fully throwing the towel in. There are stars on there. Although Osprey Phoenix, for example, it's on there, but it's like feels like a bit of a collision match for the sickos type of match. That's your main draw on Dynamite this week. And I suppose we got Mercedes Moné against, is it Zuxius, as you pronounce the name there as well. But yeah, as soon as I see Dustin Rhodes in a prominent match on a Dynamite, I think is Tony taking his foot off the gas a little bit. I really don't know. I think NXT is probably going to do it, and I think putting Cody in there is a very clear attempt to get those headlines that we beat AEW this week. And you look at the trajectory, the two NXT is not a company, but the two brands or whatever you want to call NXT. NXT is going up one way, and AEW is where AEW kind of is in the zeitgeist right now. I think this is perfect timing for them. They're going to be made up. They're going to be, is it the NBA game 3 or 4, whatever they're going up against with Dynamite this week? I think AEW's in trouble.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you. I think NXT are winning the demo this week. They're winning, probably winning overall viewers. The thing about this as well is, and I was thinking about it from a business perspective, because you can imagine like a Nick Khan, and there'll be obviously what's his name, the media bloke there who runs the world. He is going to be out there with the story of going, the show that we've sold to CW for 70 million a year is outperforming the show and the content that they're wanting 150 million a year. It's like, why would you pay that? Like they'll be putting that narrative kind of out there as well, and try and normalize the idea they can beat them. And they've got that. It's a cheat code. We can bring in any particular wrestler from the main roster in order to kind of pop those ratings and get that kind of interest there as well. But it's like, say, when I was watching Collision this week, Jesus Christ, like I was thinking, say, taking the foot off the gas, like big Dustin Rhodes, Scorpio Sky appeared out of nowhere. It's like you mentioned him being in like the Owen, and I think, mate, like he's certainly going to be involved in the qualifier, which means if that was like an extra added bet, that was like remarkably prescient on your part to pick up on that. Because like fucking hell, it felt like just lazy as fuck.
Every now and then they just kind of decide to heat up Dustin again, don't they? And this is what you get. And I always enjoy it when they do it as well. I always fall for it, but then I think they'll actually want to see him every week on Dynamite. Maybe to an extent, but maybe less is more with someone like him. I was just it's not all doom and gloom like that. Collision this week, 388,000 viewers, 0.13. Not amazing numbers, but in the realm of cable, I think they were still 7th. I think it was something like that. Still really strong. For the 5th among cable on Saturday. Overall for the night. Okay. Even if you go back to there's been some rough numbers. I heard Voices of Wrestling talking about it this week, and those rough numbers are still, in those in the top part of cable. Like even down to I think Rampage this week, which was in the 200,000s odds. I think Walter put on our Discord, still top 8 for cable that night. It's still shows you where overall things are. Even if AEW is probably a little bit down on the overall trend, and overall we're all a little bit more down on AEW as a product overall. They're still healthy enough, but yeah, it is kind of, as wrestling fans, we can't help but compare the two, can we? We can't help but look at it in comparison to WWE, which has definitely cooled off in the post-Mania season, but continues to more buck the trend of cable and then go along with it, which is kind of where AEW fits in.
Yeah. I always take the point on board, and I always think it's absolutely fair, like point about the ratings and in terms of how well it does comparatively to everything else on TV and obviously in the demo. I just think it's that frame of reference. If Warner Brothers Discovery don't want them and you're another entity, you can look at NXT and go, hang on a minute, how much does that get signed to CW for? Okay, it's for that. And in some ways, if they can somehow try and put a spanner in the works in terms of negotiations and the actual what the dollar figure would be, because was it Dave Meltzer said it's 110 million a year that they need in order to be profitable. And the last thing that WWE ultimately would want is a company that is very financially secure and making money actively. And then if they get their ducks in a row and get an infrastructure in place, then can offer an alternative to what they have. And that'll be the thing that they still would want to do. And if they can do that, I don't know. Maybe it's me being a conspiracy theorist on this, but that feels like the kind of direction of travel in case they're not scared. And yeah, like creatively, we're getting to Forbidden Door.
Yeah, I think that that AEW deal seems wrapped up. Like they're gonna be profitable, like regardless.
Oh yeah,
they could be doing better, but they're still gonna fall upwards despite themselves. But you mentioned Forbidden Door there. Yeah, we should talk that. That's the other big thing going on in AEW right now. And we've got at least our quote unquote main event set. We'll see if it does go on last. I've got an inkling it won't. But yeah, coming out of New Japan's Dominion, we're going to talk about in a bit. We do have Jon Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito now down as the main event for Forbidden Door. Joins Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay as I would imagine a co-main event, and it would be, I think, putting Swerve and Ospreay on this pay-per-view and not All In and doing it so soon and then not putting it on last, I think would be a gigantic mistake. So I'd expect Moxley and Naito to go on in the semi-main event, and I'd also expect Naito to rescue the IWGP title from Jon Moxley and bring it back to the good guys in New Japan. But yeah, added to the card with obviously Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie Vaquer. We got the TNT ladder match. We know Mark Briscoe and Konosuke Takeshita so far for that. Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa is now official for the women's world title, and yeah, added this week as well. Orange Cassidy versus Zack Sabre Jr. So yeah, the card's starting to take a little bit of shape, and I'd say Moxley Naito, while not necessarily the match I'm going to be most looking forward to when I'm sat there in the stands, JP, is a little bit more like it when it makes it feel more like a Forbidden Door match, and it was probably the only direction they could really go, because Naito is kind of the last man standing, isn't he, as far as top level singles guys you can plausibly have take on the top level of AEW right now that Tony Khan has basically signed all their biggest lads.
That's it. We're talking about a Forbidden Door card. You've just there's 6 matches that have been announced. There are 2 New Japan lads involved, and I don't think that's by mistake. Mina Shirakawa from Stardom doesn't really count into the mix, and it's the only match they could do. There was no one else. There was no one else who had that kind of what would have been. Let's try and bump the pay-per-view up a bit. Let's try and get do something a bit more interesting. He was the only option, but it's more of a damning indictment on New Japan that this is where they were going to go. And we said it on the weekend show. It's the obvious thing that was going to happen. He beats Evil. Naito comes out and challenges. They have this match of Forbidden Door. He's the champion going into G1 season. And then he gets, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but passing the torch on and the rest of it. And by God, they as a company need it. But it doesn't make me excited. I don't think it'll be the main event. I think this is an AEW show at the end of the day. And if all this talk from New Japan, being the secondary partner in all of this, it's our world title's more important than your world title. And it's Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay, which will be the better match. And I think that's going to be the big thing. And it's going to be an AEW crowd. Moxley Naito should be happening in Japan for that to kind of really have as much meaning as it would have. But here,
I think Naito will be over on the night, though.
I'll be over on the night.
Copper box and stuff like that. I can imagine being on that crowd, and the crowd treating it like it's Naito from 3 years ago, treating it like it's Naito whose legs aren't completely gone, and treating it like it's still. I think it'll be fresh to that crowd. I think as long as you present it the right way, and they will, I think that will feel big on the night.
Yeah, and it'll have that. I just think it's but what this show looks like, as much as anything else, is when it says Forbidden Door, it's a series of novelty matches, but it's all it's very all round the houses, but it's a lot more AEW flavored. Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay feels like an AEW match. I know, obviously, Will Ospreay was in New Japan not that
feels
long
like
ago,
Wrestle Dream,
but it feels like Wrestle Dream. There's a weird kind of New Japan flavor to it, but it's an AEW card, and that's kind of
and even
what it is.
With Orange Cassidy, Zack Sabre Jr., it's not exactly on the level of Bryan and Zack Sabre Jr., for example, as far as dream matches are in your head. I assume Bryan and the Blackpool Combat Club rest of the Blackpool Combat Club lads are going to be doing something with the CML lads here to add to the kind of that melting pot of it. But yeah, it does feel like they kind of thrown the towel in on the, like, at least what that initial Forbidden Door concept was. Like, me, Steph, Andrew Thompson, and SP3 did a podcast about 3 years ago, was it? Maybe 3.5 years ago, where we sat down and imagined like an amazing Dream AEW versus New Japan card, and it was like, oh, who will the Young Bucks face and who will Kenny face, and I like came up with this amazing like dream scenario. You know, I was a coward and didn't Sting versus Hiroshi Tanahashi when that could have been a great big match once upon a time. Like, it was genuinely exciting. Like, it's a real pull and teeth exhibition now, and as much as I think Naito fits the role, and yeah, absolutely, Naito Moxley is more like it. I mean, what you do next year then? Naito versus who? Like, I can't imagine in a year New Japan are going to be in a stronger position than they are now. They're probably going to be in a weaker position, aren't they? And I feel like the Forbidden Door concept is kind of going to be even more on its arse by then. By then, Tony Khan probably have signed, maybe not Naito, but like a Yota Tsuji, like Ewan says here in the chat, who we're all relatively high on, or anybody really with potential. I think if we're going to be there in New Japan, come this time next year, or dare I say it, the year after. I think as a concept, we probably are seeing it very quickly run its course, which is shocking considering how excited we were for such a thing only 2-3 years ago.
And what it should mean. And the fact that the first card, even as bad as the build was for it, was so good. And it's not like the second one was rubbish at all. But that first one, like, bloody hellfire, it really should have meant something. But you've just mentioned about like a lot of the people on the AEW side who aren't on this card. It just feels like a filler, which, if we were getting some like stuff on TV that was, say, like even looking towards like kind of more towards All In, and I know obviously it's about getting into the Owen, which then leads into that on kind of like both fronts. Like I think there'd be a reason to even be like kind of excited about the TV, but I think like a lot of these matches, like Zack Sabre Jr., Orange Cassidy, you're just like, oh fuck, that's a thing that's happening, is it? And it's like, am I excited to see it? It's like, well, if that match had appeared on Dynamite 18 months ago and you told me that, I'd be like, yeah, I believe you. Like, I feel like that's kind of like the direction of where it is at that point in time. But yeah,
that's where we are. But we'll go into some of the AEW news in a bit while we're talking kind of TV and such. Might as well. Any highlights from the weekend's TV as far as in-ring content for AEW? Obviously, we talked that Dustin Rhodes promo. I did think it was strong. They got a little bit lost trying to do Dusty, and then kind of found his feet again. And again, made me believe, just temporarily, that I should be excited for Dustin Rhodes. And he always does give you very good performances when he's put in the spot. So even Jack Perry is a one-off. I don't necessarily hate. But yeah, any other highlights from the show? It was one of those. It was the show that I think bore the turn from Tony Khan last week that he books for the sickos, and we had a pretty decent work rate main event with Kyle O'Reilly and Orange Cassidy. I don't really have many notes on a few other forgettable matches in the card. It wasn't a hard watch. It was a better ring show than I would say NXT Battleground at the weekend, but also, despite only being 2 hours, felt twice as long as NXT Battleground did. I don't know why that is. A lot happened, but not a huge amount of notice. Probably be point here, JP. What were your highlights and lowlights from AEW's weekend TV?
I think the thing I was mostly shocked by on Collision was the fact that it's 1 year old next week. I was like, what? Like, and they were banging on. I was like, where's that come from? That this is a year old, and
shocking it's a year, and shocking it's not 3 years. Like, look at that. I saw the graphic doing the rounds of Punk and FTR versus Joe, Jay White, and Juice Robinson, which was the first Collision main event for reasons. We would find out the reasons would be they were the people Punk planned on feuding with. But yeah, that feels like simultaneously a year ago and a decade ago. Like, that different world. Like, I've obviously talked some of the TV numbers before, and like compared and contrasting to last year, especially the attendance wise. Like, I think Brandon Thurston's reporting's got like, I think it's a 60% difference on the Collision from this time last year, and obviously that's because we were in the midst of it being the Punk show, and the midst of it being treated, dare I say, JB, remember, equal to Dynamite was the expectation. We fell for it too. We were like, oh, that's great. We'll have a really hot show to talk about every Tuesday, equivalent with Dynamite. They can't do another Rampage. They kind of did another Rampage. But yeah, it's night and day to where we were this time last year.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, what I would say about this is always as a show is it's nicely paced. that's the thing that Collision I always think always has that makes it the
it's an easy
easier
watch.
watch. Like it's a very easy, like when the squash matches come in, they're fine. They don't overstay their welcome in their squash matches. It's just that when it's things like Dustin Rhodes Johnny TV, which I think only went about 8 minutes, I was like, I don't need to see Johnny TV there. I would just sooner Dustin Rhodes came out for a promo and challenged Jack Perry for the glory of AEW. It's like,
But wouldn't we then
that
be
would have.
saying it's bad that they didn't build them up in any way? Like, you've got to give them a win, haven't you? Someone's got to lose.
True, but it is like when that is the focal point of the show, and you mentioned that the problem obviously with Dynamite is it's like, well, what is the stuff of substance that's happening here? I mean, I won't lie. I laughed at Samoa Joe and Hook. Like I found like them talking about lacrosse like weirdly interesting before they beat up the premier athletes who are now like
Joe not understanding lacrosse. I don't understand lacrosse, to be honest. He was like, it's the world's oldest sport, but like, isn't it just football? It's soccer mixed with, what did he say? Basketball, maybe? Hockey, I think he said. That was funny.
Yeah, it was. I was like, okay, I've kind of laughed at this, and I thought it was all right, but it was like we're still getting some of the broken toys aspect. Like Scorpio Sky is backstage, and he's just back talking bollocks. It's just like, lads, cut loose, cut loose. Have him go to NXT. He'd be a great pickup for them, by the way.
They probably would sign him.
It's exactly who they would want on there as well. But like I say, it sort of it opened and closed with like some say decent work rate matches that I haven't necessarily got a whole lot to kind of speak about. I thought that the tag match was kind of fine. If I won't lie, it felt a bit by the numbers. This was like almost what I expected, and it went to a draw because it's FTR and Blackpool Combat Club, which is always a thing that seems like it's in stasis. I'm sure they haven't wrestled that many times, but it feels like it's the kind of.
But again, if you told me it was 100, I believe you then too.
Wheelie Utah's back, and I don't even know if he's been away. Like, yeah, he's getting a push in there. But like, that was the thing about this is very by the numbers TV that we're getting in the build up to Forbidden Door, which is a very like in a lot of ways not being treated the way it was in the past. And it's I don't say I worry about it, but like you think they do need to recognize this is the case and start to get their ducks in a row and thinking, okay, where are we going to be for All In? Where are we then going to be for All Out? And then for the rest of the year, and start to kind of get some big storylines. I was thinking of this when we did the Aces and 8 show on the Patreon. I was thinking, God, do some big meta angle for AEW involving a massive invading force. He'd have signing a few wrestlers. You'd have all sorts going on there, given the histories, and some great matches. And you wouldn't need Nux in there or anyone else like that. And they could do all manner of storylines. But that for me is kind of what it needs for the TV.
Motorbikes, that's what AEW needs. That's my take, not JP's. But yeah, that was bring back Chuck Palumbo. He could come out on his motorbike. Now, yeah, I'm with you. I thought FTR and Blackpool Combat was fine, but again, not anything I've seen before. Main event again. If you told me I've saw it 14 times on Dynamite in the last month, I'd believe you. But it was fine. It's just good. It's almost like a more star-laden WCW Saturday Night at this point, Collision, and there's something to that, because if it was fully first run like Dynamite, then you'd be exhausting things as well. So it's got a weird place in the word Collision. I think my argument is probably in the end it'd be great if it didn't exist and we could just concentrate on Dynamite instead. But as far as like filling TV time, which is all it seems to be at the minute, like we kept saying, it was fine as an overall watching. Yeah, they do little things in there, like little bits of, I think, the hard work you have to do. Like if you're really going to go with Daniel Garcia in Buffalo in a couple of weeks, then you need to start giving him wins. And we went over there Tate Mayfair's in very quick succession, and Tate Mayfair's didn't really get a chance to show anything good. And Daniel Garcia pretty much blew through him. So I at least enjoyed that element of it. They even had like a little video for Mercedes Moné and Zeusis. I'll get that name right when she's on Dynamite this week, to build that up and build up the Stephanie Vaquer match. So they are making a little bit use of the TV time, even if it's largely inessential. And yeah, that kind of leads into Dynamite this weekend, and this week, on Wednesday. And like I say, we got Osprey, Phoenix, Mercedes, Zeuix. We got that Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly versus Kyle Fletcher, Takeshita, and Really Strong. Apparently Jericho's back, so he's not dodging the bad rated Dynamite this week. And we've got Dustin Rhodes versus Jack Perry. Oh, and Roos in action, which probably means more follow up with MJF as well. So got that to look forward to. And yeah, the only thing we won't be seeing is Dax the Axe, coming out of a Collision. It sounds like we're not going to be seeing him for a little while, hiding a back injury apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And, he has said he's dealing with a severe hematoma. And so they've been pulled off the road for AEW as well. And apparently it was after the match that he had on Collision, he put ice in it and it grew to the size of a football at the very least. And he's in excruciating pain. And he kind of looked it as much as anything else. So he's going to be off the road, but they don't know for how long. I mean, I would suggest this isn't necessarily a bad thing for them. Like, I always believe in the absence makes the heart grow fonder. They are getting on in age. Not that old, obviously, but like considering what they do for a living and the physicality of it, I think for him, like them being away for a few months is possibly like, a little bit of a blessing in disguise. If he's
singles time for cash, surely. Let's go.
We've not had it, have we?
We all wanted.
We've had plenty of
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that might not really be the case, but then just take them off as an act. They're getting paid. They'll be all right. Families and stuff. They'll be grand. They'll love it.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, the only thing that worries me about is obviously, they seem to be filling a role, and that role seems to be taken up by the Acclaim now, as we're now getting an Acclaimed and Young Bucks feud instead. But hopefully, they're healthy enough to be back around the time of at least before All In. But we will see. But yeah, outside of that, I suppose it is almost kind of tangentially related to AEW. We just talked about Moxley versus Naito. We should talk about how that match came about and Dominion. We should talk about the top end of the card. I don't know if you managed to work through the New Japan app to get this going, JP. After the compliments I gave it last week for allowing me to pick match by match, I take that back this week. It took me at least 5 or 6 different goes to watch the Best of Super Juniors final, because the app kept telling me that I had no internet, and helpfully, instead of buffering, it just closes the match, makes you start again every single time, and I kept having to go back and press play again, find where I was and get through it. So it was a fucking battle for me to get through the Best of the Super Juniors final, and I have to admit, for that reason, I didn't end up having time to watch Mox and Evil. But yeah, I don't know if you saw that, JP, or you had any particularly highlights or lowlights. I heard Mox and Evil wasn't as bad as it could have been, so I was almost sad that I didn't see it. I heard people saying it was actually all right in the end, but yeah, ran out of time unfortunately due to the app.
And do you know what? It is as good as an Evil match is going to be. That's the thing. It had all the bullshit you hate, but done by someone who gets
broken clock and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And Moxley can do that stuff. It's just that when Evil's in there against people who they're not trained. It's not like the nature of how they've been brought up to work. That was kind of fine. And then you had lots of then a point with the New Japan dads coming in and the rest of it, because it was a lumberjack match. So there was always stuff going on, and sadly the crowd liked it. And I think that was the disappointing element. I was like, oh God, they're going to take this as, yep, we're on the right track. This is exactly what we should be doing. And that makes me slightly fearful of that being it. But yeah, it was, I still wouldn't go more than 3 stars. Can I make that point perfectly clear? This wasn't like a great match. It was a bullshit match, but done as well as it's going to be in New Japan. And you just want to move past it, but it's like a load of fucking nonsense, basically. But I don't know. I was just thinking, looking at this card, and did a good number, like 7,250. Like that's a good crowd for them, and very, very healthy for that. And you think, okay. But then I was watching this, and I was like, there is nothing in New Japan that excites me. Maybe I'm wrong. There just isn't anything there that is like you're excited by. Like we've spoken about Mox and Naito, and it's like born out of necessity because he's the last man standing. Like I watched him and Callum Newman as like a kind of like a curious match. I was like, I'm just intrigued to see where Callum.
Oh, we're having an internet and a mic issue at the same time, I think. Double whammy. Naito JP.
Can you hear me? I might not be coming through on the right mic, so so I'm going to try.
No, we've got you.
Oh, okay, that's good. I was a bit worried there for a second, but yeah, it was like a kind of he kicked out of a version of the Destino, and it looked like Callum Newman was going to mean something in New Japan, and it was like, but that's like a throwaway match at the beginning of the card. There's just the whole lot of stuff that kind of happened up to the main event, which I kind of liked, but I was also very, very drained by that point. And I was like, yeah, I know the crowd are liking it, but I'm not, because I'm not excited by any of this or the directions that it's going in.
Shame in it. There's not much going on in wrestling right now, is there?
No.
But he's probably the thing I was most positive about this week. Even that bloody Battleground show for its faults. Yeah, New Japan's not where you're going to get a nice an oasis away from the problems of the other major companies, because they're tenfold, aren't they, in New Japan, as we talked about earlier. Yeah, nothing about that card. Maybe you want to run out and watch it. And as we said in the preview, Dominion's usually a show that we massively look forward to year on year. I will say I did see, I don't know if you saw it, it felt like it was something right up your street. Obviously we talked the best of the Super Juniors final and Despy winning. What was this Despy offer show that was on New Japan World this weekend? I saw people watching that on Sunday morning, having the time of their lives. I was thinking I should be watching that instead of Dominion. Apparently Despy should just get the book in New Japan, is what I'm told these days.
Yeah, the Despy Invitational, wasn't it? I saw, like, I didn't watch it. It looked like
I saw some fun photos and videos, yeah.
Yeah, like a bit of Hurricane madness to kind of get into the mix. There was the one where, who's the guy from DDT who, like, he did one of the spots where he's kissing Gedo, wasn't he, in there? And I think he does like a kind of and stuff like that. It was the kind of like, it seemed like a bit of a laugh as much as anything, but it, like, it's still at the same time, it's fine for Despy, but Despy should be a heavyweight at this point. It's like, and again, the match with him and Taiji Ishimori, who is also really getting on in years, like, it was a decent match. I thought, just nothing particularly, like, wasn't particularly excited by it. Like, it was good work in it. And it had like a crowd that were interested and are like kind of, invested. But right, you go.
It felt like a very main event, like junior heavyweight match. It felt like they worked almost that New Japan main event style, with a very kind of clear story there, and a clear villain and a clear hero in there as well. And yeah, I thought they worked it well enough. Didn't really break the 3.75 kind of ceiling for me with it. There was some creative stuff in it. Anytime you got, Despy trying to take somebody apart is always going to be good for me. And there were some, creative spots in there, and it did feel like there was a bit of drama towards the end. I was watching it again. It was one of those thinking, I know the result watching it, but is anybody there watching live really in much doubt? Because it felt like it was in the stars for Despy to finally get his big win. But I suppose they did a good job of selling the fact that, well, Taiji Ishimori had a similar story there as well. But yeah, it was more, this did feel like one where, like, the rest of the card didn't really go for me, and I think a lot of that New Japan, even the hardcores, you kind of feel like have pretty much not fell off with New Japan, but extremely frustrated in 2024. A lot of that frustration ends up getting aimed at AEW and Tony Khan and John Moxley with having the title, rather than the very clear homegrown issues they have. But this felt like this was one for them, because Despy is one of those reliable guys who's still knocking around. He's not necessarily fresh, but he's somebody who, like, the hardcore New Japan fans like, and you could kind of feel it in the crowd reaction to him in the win and the post match, that it did feel like it meant something. And it was a little bit of a glimpse of the good side of New Japan still, even if I'm not, doing somersaults on it, and I wouldn't, like I say, wouldn't go higher than 4, but it was there was something to it, and it felt like the way that I'm probably saying, it felt fan service. It felt like fan service to give Despy that win, to give him that offer show over the weekend as well, for him to have that too. Kind of felt like his weekend, and a bit of a go watch moment for him overall.
Yeah, and I hope it continues. I just think there was always that point in time for me where it was like, he's a big guy. Like, this is a guy who could, and he's over with this crowd. he could seamlessly go into the main events, and he wrestled never matches, and you just thought he looks completely at home for that. And I just hope we get to that place sooner rather than later, because they've waited a very long time. And obviously the next thing that it goes on to is the G1, because that's what this show is that kind of in place. Although it's very weird, they've got another show this weekend called New Japan Soul, which obviously previewing on the weekend show, where they're going to be announcing who's going to be in the G1. But they've made a few changes. I said I'd explain this to Matty on the pre-show as well and see what he makes of this. So it's gone back to a 20-man field on there, and they're announcing 80. Yeah, that feels like that's a good move. First of all, they've got 18 of them are going to be announced at New Japan Soul at the weekend, and it is. It's just two blocks of 10. They're not doing any of the madcap 4-block stuff. And then there's going to be 2 remaining spots where basically there's going to be qualifying matches for that as well. Right. And except this time it's going to be the top 3 that get promoted. This feels like they've taken a leaf out of the Scottish League and done that mad thing where they kind of cut the league in half for a reason, and they have other stuff. They've got the top 3 that advance. But then the overall person who is top goes straight into the semi-finals. And in many ways, like kind of like rugby league and whatnot, doing stuff like this.
I like that.
And in the second and third places, finish it off as well. Like, it's a proper playoff system. Like, we're sports fans. We kind of get it. We're predisposed to this type of stuff.
Putting a bit of stakes into it. It's one of them, you put more stakes into finishing second or third. But the only worry there is that, like, it's a bit like the Continental Classic where just too many people went forward. It was like, I mean, at that point, it's like there's more people, moving on than there are left behind. We've seen that happen before too, haven't we? Where that happens, where they mess around with format, and it's like, well, nearly everyone's going through here. It's not as interesting as when there was more knockouts. But I suppose that's countered by the 20-man field and the 10 in each block. So the 10 will be fighting for those top 3 spaces. So it still kind of works. It's a different spin on it, and they can't afford to do those fucking monster New Japan Cup style fucking gigantic fields anymore, can they? They haven't got the talent for it. A more slimlined 20-man field, depending on who the 20 men are, sounds a lot better to me.
It is a lot better. And this needs to be the one where they're elevating people properly. This is not the one. This should all be about.
Should be.
It should be, but it won't be. And you don't have any faith that that'll be the case. Yeah. And it's the most obvious thing that's staring them in the face is what you want to do is it's okay. Naito will be dethroned at Wrestle Kingdom. Who should be the person to do it? Basically, for me, I would go for a final of Shota Umino versus Yota Tsuji. And then you go, it's going to be one of these 2 guys. And I'd be absolutely fine with that. I know that there are people who might have reservations about bits of them, but I need to shit or get off the pot with this. And that needs to be the prospect of it. And if you want to make it really interesting imports. And that for me means bring in a Ricochet, into the mix. Like, try and liven this up. Try and do something with it at this point in time. Because for the love of God, they just need a fresh injection of life. And they need to go with the young lads at this point. This is like Arsenal when they had Aubameyang and Mesut Ozil around the place, and they were just like couldn't give a shit, or they were just like gone. It was like, you need to be putting Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli up front rather than these boys. And then they announced, obviously, a lot of the schedule coming up, which wasn't particularly exciting, to be honest with you. Even if they did have Chris Charlton doing live translation for it as well on there. So Capital Collision in August, US show. And then there's they're doing the X Over 2 cross show on there. And shock of all shockers, mate, January 4th, 2025, Wrestle Kingdom 19.
Oh, that's when it is. Okay.
Which is, I'm astonished.
Too fair. It could be the 4th, 5th, 6th,
They do the announcement and people
wouldn't shock me.
I think that's the good thing to take from it is there's only one. They're not trying to rinse this out for 2. And it's going to be a big 6 months for New Japan. And I think the first glimpse of it is when we see it on this New Japan Soul card that's up this weekend. Which, I mean, obviously we're going into a bit more of a preview on it, but it's headlined by Show versus Despy. Finish the story, the Despy story. This one in a steel cage match. So he's got to be winning that. Like, that's the only way to be doing that. And then David Finlay versus Sonata for the global championship in a match that I absolutely refuse point blank at this stage to watch. And then a rematch from Shingo Tenare, which wasn't that great, or the finish they had that shitty draw at Dominion, and that was a bit boring on there as well. So yeah, that's the main stuff on there at this point. It's a pretty lackluster card, but it's all about G1 announcements. That's the main stuff.
Yeah, I'll consider the years have passed of following the G1 match for match and having spreadsheets for all the matches and ratings and such. Those days are gone, but I'll be playing. They'll pull me in at least the first couple of days. I'll give them a chance, depending on who's in the field. As Ewan says here, yeah, maybe you get a Jungle Boy, maybe somebody from AEW, they're willing to let come and do it. That could be interesting. That might spark my interest, and then it'll be seared until January the 4th, because I might fuck watching Winter New Japan in the year of our Lord 2024. But company's going to be continuing on in the summer. JP, few TNA updates as well before we get to the documentary corner.
Couple of announcements on here. TNA Wrestling, the death of TNA Wrestling was not happening because they're on a total non-stop summer tour as well, which that big fat American summer vibe that they've got happening on there. I know I've got that name there. It was released on Monday. The schedule 12 stops at 6 locations. Don't get too excited. It's twice a month. Like, not going to go overboard with it. They're in the old MLW haunt of Cicero Stadium, a place you know very, very well, on June 14th, 15th, where basically it's for that one, it's pay-per-view and against all odds. And then they're taping on there, and then they're to Philadelphia, then they're into Quebec, and then they're in Florida. And then Kentucky, Ohio, and we haven't got the big announcement, which is where he's going to be bound for glory in that. I'm going to say Canada at this point.
So TNA not dead is the headline here. Good to know.
Yes, that is the big takeaway, that it isn't dead on there as well. But I tell you what, he's still getting a paycheck from them. Apparently, Scott D'Amore. This is according to Rhino at a meet and greet. So it could be bullshit, but it was because Will Ospreay had said something about which, let's face it, I don't think he's entirely wrong. Where he said, "Why isn't Scott D'Amore booking Ring of Honor?" And then it was one of the things where he said, "No, he's getting paid up until February, so there might be some sort of thing where he's got that payout at the moment. He can take a bit of time off, get his ducks into a row. But him booking Ring of Honor, absolutely, I think that would make all the sense in the world. Like, it would give it some sense of like identity, and it'd feel more like their NXT.
Anybody with a strong kind of just idea of how they see wrestling that is different than Tony Khan, being able to run it, and not one of those fucking working road agents who'll just book themselves and their mates, which is what we find a lot with ROH. Somebody who genuinely, likes different wrestlers and a different style. Yeah, that's somebody you could do that with. Just to rewind, actually, Ewan does make a good point on the schedule point. Yeah, the TNA did, I think it was a tweet talking about Bound for Glory being in one of the most visited cities of the world this year. I think Ewan was the one who put it on the Discord, the top 10 of the world's most visited cities. London's up there. Somehow it's number 2. Kind of shocking, really, that it still does so well. In amongst New York and all the actual good cities. Now, I like London these days. I'm not a London hater anymore, but more likely than some. I think Mecca was on the list, so I don't think they're running it. They're doing a literal TNA Mecca. I don't think that's happening.
That would be
Glory London could happen in October. That wouldn't be a shock.
Mecca would be a ballsy move. Like, that would be a crazy move. Rather like Istanbul, like just going for that as well at the same time. But honestly, London would be a great shout. Like, I mean, God says they run it at a not entirely full Hurricane Hall, for God's sakes. So if they've managed to do that, London would make sense. That would be a pretty decent kind of shout for that as well. Steph mentions Toronto in the chat. Like, in some ways,
it's in the top 10, apparently. Yeah, I'm just looking now.
They have that fancy venue that they like running, though, don't they? At the same time in Toronto, that looks good for TV.
Here's your list, JP. It's number 1, Istanbul, won't be there. Number 2, London. Number 3, Dubai. Number 4, Antalya in Turkey. Place near and dear to both our hearts. Number 5, me too. Alanya down the road, great place, great summertime. Paris, France, Hong Kong, Bangkok, near to my heart. New York, Cancun. And Mecca, number 10. So one of them, basically. It's not gonna. Cancun would be good. Do a proper. You want that in the summer though, springtime, maybe not October. I think London. It's gonna be London.
I think it. Do you know what? Why not at this stage with everything else they've got? It's where they run in London. Do they feel confident enough to run Wembley Arena and draw a big crowd? Is there enough of a pull for TNA in the UK in 2024? If that's what they were going to do, if London was going to be the place where they go to, I mean, I think it's interesting, like for them to do it. It just, that's the only problem. It's kind of feast or famine, isn't it? You can either get a nice fancy arena at the Copper Box, something along those lines, if they were able to do it.
Having gone to Coventry, and obviously the HMV Empire is perfect for like a Rev Pro, but for TNA it was too small, and it's a big floor. Like it's one of those big like like academy type venues that you go see a gig at, like gigantic really, and the seats went really far back, but clearly as a room too small for like the strength and depth of field I think there is for TNA as a brand in the UK. I think that tour was what kind of pushed Scott D'Amore to want to do like the full retro with TNA stuff, and to lean into that UK market, bring in a Leon and other people like him. It just didn't get a chance to come to fruition, but yeah, that part of it might still be on the calendar. It wouldn't shock me. Ewan says London, but it's actually Luton, like a Ryanair flight. Maybe it will be. TNA Luton, that's what we could be getting this year. But yeah, something to keep an eye on.
London Southend, yeah.
Yeah.
You've got London Oxford as an airport. It's like it's not London, mate. It's a couple of counties away at this point. It's not even next to it. But yeah, and by all accounts, one of the people who they're going to be bringing into the mix in all of both accounts is going to be Matt Riddle, which isn't really a surprise. I can remember a conversation.
So who's the source on this?
I would have to assume it's one Matthew Riddle in all of this.
We'll see.
He said you never know for AEW and WWE, and he says I work a lot with New Japan and MLW. It's like, well, yeah, MLW maybe, but not really like New Japan. That appears to be out the kind of window. Him going to TNA, that's exactly the kind of move I'd expect him to make, and this will probably be the time when he's most interested. But there is a time where I can tell you that he himself would have just turned it down straight away and said, "Nah, there's bigger stuff." But that shows you the kind of place where he is at this point in time. There's been no talk of him going into AEW. Doesn't seem to be any big sort of boosters behind the scenes who are wanting to kind of bring him in for very obvious reasons. But it still always surprises you in wrestling about how and even him going into TNA, this isn't like the kind of thing that even feels like TNA would be massively behind it. It feels like it'd be a short-term deal, get a series of tapings out of him, because that's kind of what a lot of the crew are on, aren't they? It's like per show deals. So it just feels cycle him out for some TV tapings, have him on a pay-per-view, and then let him fuck off again.
Yeah, that's it. Only way it works. But that's the end of the TNA news. And yeah, I can't see it happening, but Riddle is gonna talk. It's what he's always been good at. Matt Riddle. But yeah, we should get into a documentary corner before we get to some last news stories. Real shame, it's a bit like Dark Side of the Ring. We're always going to be a week behind on this, as the second episode is airing tonight, and there is a clip of Bret Hart doing the rounds that's going viral on episode 2. But as Brits, we should be lucky. We're not going to get it on 4OD for about 4 years, so we're still ahead of the curve there. What did you make of Who Killed WCW? We talked a little bit about it on the pre-show. Matty was high on it, as still enjoying it despite the story being told a million times, including by people like us who did that month gone. That's going to age well, I reckon, in a couple of weeks when they get to episode 4. But yeah, we'd seen the 15-minute preview last week. Now seeing the full episode. Lying liars and the bullshit lies they tell, JP, or something a bit more positive than that?
It's very watchable, I won't lie, but then we're predisposed to be able to watch it. There was a point you made in the pre-show that I have to completely go with, and that's like, I don't want to see anything else about this story ever again. This is feeling like when I watched that third ECW documentary, and I was like, right, enough. Like, I know what happened now, and I'm pretty much guessing that these group of people are liars. And it feels like we're building up to like a massive bitch fest where everybody slags off everybody else and says that's the reason why. And Brett calls them all twats and is right as always, whilst like they're laughing in the background. And it's always watchable. It was always a lot more interesting. I think in some ways I almost wanted to see more of the building of WCW. I think doing this in 4 parts rather than, I know it sounds like I want more of it, but I think it'd be a better story to kind of properly tell like the rise of WCW, because it still feels like it kind of hosted it, just glossed over large swathes of it, and so it's not even got the like kind of level of depth that you might think you're getting. Well, this is the definitive kind of story about it. It's a lot of it was it just had a bit more added rock into the mix. You had his thoughts on it because it's his production company, and you're like, okay, that's a bit novel. But but he's got no kind of like investment in it at the time, because obviously he was. There's no fucking way in hell he would have ended up in WCW. But it was just a bit weird.
Yeah, it's funny because you're right, and I did say I'm sick of this story. I never want to hear it again. But I think I'm full of shit because I really enjoyed this. I really liked it. Like, if I'm honest, like, what was my overriding emotion, like, watching it and coming out of it? I did enjoy it. I don't know whether it's nostalgia and the points they were hitting in episode 1, because they had a lot of ground to cover. You know, in episode 1, it was, you know, starting with that keying things up, well, who killed it type of thing, and then into pretty much the entirety of Bischoff, and then into pretty much the entirety of the early Nitros, and then into, it felt like, the entire NWO story, pretty much, although it feels like, you know, we're going to be going back to the other iterations of the NWO in episode 2. So to your point, yeah, I actually maybe would have, in a more positive sense, taken more of it and broken those little bits down. But I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the kind of look back at that year, one of my favorite eras, you know, that those Nitros in 96 and 97. I thought they, on the one hand, gave Bischoff a lot of credit that I think he does deserve, and then also had Bret Hart come in as the truth teller of all truth tellers. And despite the fact you've heard Eric Bischoff tell mostly the truth with a couple of porkies thrown in there across the time and come across as like the narrator of the show, I kind of love that tale where Bret Hart was like, nah, he's a fucking idiot. He was Hogan's yes man. He's a fucking idiot too. He didn't say exactly that, but he basically did. And then just ripped him to pieces. I got a lot of entertainment out of that as well. And yeah, it felt, even though they kind of let Bischoff hang himself and let him talk and say things that were mostly true, but, you know, maybe weren't entirely the case, it also kind of held him to account and had a talking head like a Bret Hart talking about, well, these are the problems. And then it makes me feel it's very WWE leaning as far as the talking heads go. Like Steph noted that you normally expect with Dark Side of the Ring, there's a few AEW contracted people or people kind of on the outs with WWE see more of. This was very much a who's who of people who are in the good books of WWE, even people who don't work there, like a Conan. You know, we saw him at the Hall of Fame this year. You know, he's hardly, you know, anti-WWE at this point. He's probably quite a safe head to be on. But it did kind of give you access to some interesting heads that we haven't seen talk over and over again on Dark Side of the Ring, and did make it feel a little bit fresh there as well. So I kind of can't wait for more. I call me a sucker for, you know, it's like, you know, we talk about with like the Montreal Screwjob and being sick of that. I do feel the same way a little bit about this overall subject, but you put it on a plate for me and it's produced as well as this, and it sounds like we're going to get a lot more behind the scenes footage coming as well that I'm excited to see. And yeah, I was into it, to be honest, and I think I'm probably going to be into it for the duration.
Oh, we'll be watching all of these and we'll be talking about them every week. That much is happening. Like, it has to happen in that way. And I'm predisposed to, and it becomes easy because it immediately ends up on YouTube and it'll turn up in the algorithm because I've searched
50
for it before.
different fake YouTube accounts, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So some of which are better than others.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think with this, it's the talking heads is really like that mentioned part of the strength of it. The fact it's like Brad Siegel, and there was a guy called Dick Cheatham who was like marketing, and I think that's something that I almost wanted them to go into this. I don't want to say like missed an opportunity, but if you were telling a bit more longer form, the idea of like, here is like Ted Turner, who is creating cable TV or like certainly like popularizing it, and it's a big deal, but he loves this wrestling company that's always been on it. And all these other high ups who just, they themselves are saying, they're going, we don't get wrestling, don't understand it, we don't know why this is here. There's a lot more stuff about that kind of relationship and how WCW under Bischoff kind of becomes like it's actually an integral part of the TNT and TBS strategy, rather like in the same way that we spoke about with AEW earlier on, where it is like it's an important part of their TV because of that demo that it delivers. And I think there's so much more stuff they can do there, and they kind of almost have to like gloss through it. And I think guys like that, we haven't had them on camera talking about this stuff, and they're far enough removed away from it they can say it without worrying about blowback. But yeah, dare I say, I want to see more Brad Siegel, which is exactly what all WCW wrestlers would never have said at any stage at the time that company was around.
Ted Turner Jr. I'm looking forward to hearing more from him. At least, like, we always talk about, like, it's always funny, like, all these documentaries are made about the Monday Night War. I was like, Ted Turner thought this, Ted Turner thought that. And you can absolutely imagine Ted Turner not spending a minute of his year even thinking about WWF or Vince McMahon, or, you know, he's not the boogeyman that side make him out to be. I don't think he was invested as made out. But at least we got a representative from his side. I'd like a little bit more of that, because, again, you know, I mentioned Bischoff's porkies before. I shouldn't call them porkies. I think he just genuinely doesn't remember. He talks about things like, oh, we came up with this, you know, Ted Turner wanted a 2-hour show. No, we didn't, mate. Nitro was an hour for a very long time. I know that because I rewatched it on the network and very much enjoyed it until it got to the 2-hour point. You liar. There were a few things like that when I was like, they backed me into a corner and made me do it. I'm pretty sure I've heard you say it was your idea before. But okay, Eric. But again, I always felt like they let him hang himself with his own rope, because at the end of it, you do get that other side of it. Like, yeah, he is a bullshitter, and yeah, he did fall for the big stars, and yeah, he did end up just doing a lot of Hogan's bidding and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm interested in hearing more of the fall side of it. I think next week or tonight, late tonight, that people are gonna finally get to see the second episode. There's gonna be a lot of that. It's gonna be a lot of, you know, Nash, I'm guessing, and a lot of what happened with the finger poke of doom and all of that stuff, and that kind of era, I'm guessing, into like the 98, 99 era. And we'll probably get a lot of Russo by episode 3, so we should probably enjoy it while it's existing in this version of WCW. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see all that. A lot of it's like place and time as well. Just, you know, they did capture why it worked so much and why the NWO was like something where, you know, the t-shirt was cool and you'd see people wearing it on, you know, just on random, you'd be watching like some random like Sexcetera or something like that on like not that I was watching a lot of the late 90s or early 2000s, but you just see a bloke in an NWO t-shirt, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, or like the NBA, let's bet an example, or, you know, real life type stuff. Like they got over that as well, what a big cultural phenomenon it was, and how much, you know, they were pushing against the grain in a way that WWE wasn't doing for a while until they pushed back. So yeah, wasn't exactly a fresh take on an old story, but like I say, it was entertaining enough for me, and it's going to hinge, I think, on those talking heads, as you mentioned, the more real life people you can get from behind the scenes. And if we get more footage, like this last Nitro sounds like we got a lot of footage from, then yeah, that's going to be catnip to me as well. So yeah, I'm going to be banging into it.
Yeah, that's it. A lot more of the wacky talking heads, but we do get Bill Goldberg. I think we're going to get a lot of him next week.
That's good, at least. Yeah, I wish Sting was there. Like, it is odd that, like, there's a lot of people talk, because again, we've done Starrcade 97 a few times recently, and I want to cover that again. But like, the talking that, and, you know, there seems to be an over acceptance from Bischoff that he's been beaten down so much over the years that even he acknowledges it was a bad idea now, and even he acknowledges it was a wet fart. But there's a lot of talking on behalf of Sting when you just want to hear, well, what does Sting actually think? Was Sting really, like, miserable on the day? Was Sting just expecting that he was, you know, Hogan was going to politic him out of the win? That would have added another dimension to that element of the story as well. So while there are, people like Goldberg that feel a little bit different, the fact that we're missing some of those key AEW adjacent names is still a negative as well. But there we go. Unless you've got more on that, like I say, episode 2 sounds like it's going to have a lot of Brett on it as well. I know you've been high on that footage. He's been talking a lot as well.
He's a fucking star, isn't he, Brett? Like, in terms of his kickoff, I would play the video up on here, and you know, you can see it out there. And obviously, by the time of this, it'll be him, no doubt, kind of doing lots of this multiple times, talking about how they blew him coming in. It's like, that's another series of podcasts that we did about how they fucking ruined him in WCW, and it's heartbreaking.
I mean, he was crap too, though, wasn't he? Retro Boys aren't here, so I can say it. He wasn't very good. He didn't want to be there. There was just a cloud of just fuck this place around from the first introduction. I don't think he even had a good match in WCW. Come at me, Retro Boys. Maybe he had one, maybe the Flair match. But the Benoit. I forget the Benoit match. At least there's that.
Yeah,
the two of them.
Exactly. But
I understand why he's so bitter.
Yeah, I can completely get why, but I think that is at least I will say this about the WCW series, like the Monday Night Wars and other stuff like that. Even though there is a WWE influence, obviously, as part of this and part of Dwayne Johnson being involved, it's a lot more. At least the people who are there, and they're kind of having this kind of bitch fest with each other, as I think that this show is going to end up developing into. That at least we're kind of getting that a bit more unfiltered, and you can see it with the Brett clip as well, like calling him an imbecile and like fucking idiots. Like he's an absolute superstar for that kind of stuff. God bless him.
Any other news before we get out of here, JP?
Couple of little bits. It's been that kind of a week. I mean, Sabu has claimed that GCW want him to have his last match with them in January. He says he's open to having it for AEW. It's like, I want to play centre forward for Arsenal and Ireland, mate. We'll see who gets lucky first on there. GCW is naturally the home of what Sabu should be last match, apart from one other place, and that's that leisure centre in Bootle. That would be like perfect. Again,
full
like
circle.
an ending for his career in there as well. And GCW want to do the last match with him in January in there. I just don't think this doesn't strike me as a bloke who's going to have a last match. And if he does have a last match, he's going to definitely have a second last match in there.
Yeah.
And he's going to make himself like a good few quid out there. And he'll have it with Rob Van Dam. That would be
do it with a smile
the
on his face.
perfect person to do it. Yeah, exactly. And then they'll tour that match up and down every indie show around the country. He will be all over the place for that.
I wanted GCW really laid a note. I threw in a final last story. Apparently there's a blood sport going on. Like, I know this is Japan. I know about the Japan one. There's one in New York the weekend I'm there. I was like, what? Why have I not heard of this?
Like, you've got to go.
Oh, wait, no, it's not. Oh, I'm wrong. It's July. It's the month after. Oh, what a waste of time. It's the month after. I still didn't know about it. Did you know about it? Did you know it was even happening?
Not a clue. I knew about the Bushido one because that's got Quentin Jackson in. Again, tying in, we can tie it into the former member of Aces and Eights, tying it into that podcast there as well. But this one completely hit me by surprise, and it's like,
remember there was a point where they were going to do more regular blood sports, and it was going to be like it felt like they did that for a while. The bloom came off the rose, and it went back to just purely WrestleMania weekend. Odd one that they're bringing it back just for randomly in Brooklyn in the end of July.
Maybe they think with the NXT Underground match between Lola Vice and Shayna Baszler.
We didn't really talk. We skipped that, didn't we? I forgot about that. Any thoughts? Was that better or worse than Bloodsport? Go on, throw that in at the end.
It was a lot faker, and you couldn't see anything because it's like they turned off the lights.
They made it too WWE.
Yep, they came out to the ring. They just started doing the slapping the mat, which I think was part of the original kind of Raw Underground and stuff that they've done there. So it was like, what's really going on? And they also did the thing that UFC does, but it makes sense in that on the octagon on the outside is you have 4 cameramen in different corners. And the live director is cutting between them as the fighters are circling around the ring. So they've always got them in frame. And they were doing it here. And I admire the stylistic choice, but bloody hellfire. Like, it was weird to watch WWE do this. And it was dark. And I was more surprised that Lola Vice won, and they were talking about her like MMA career. And it's like, have I missed something? Like, I knew this was Shuri in Stardom. That
they did like the fake knockout thing as well, didn't they? You know, she's trying to double leg the ref and all of that. Yeah, they went full on it. It
felt very, very fake. That's how it felt for me, and it was like, okay, that's why Shayna Baszler's there. Her job is to put her over, and she will do that at this stage. She's had a big match with Ronda Rousey. That feels like, this is the direction of travel for her career for the time that she's there, but she'll do well and she'll make a few quid, probably more than she would be doing in any kind of MMA related stuff. So yeah, that's all right. But yeah, good old blood sport. It's a shame you couldn't go, mate.
Well, maybe I'll stick around and make myself known. But there we go. That's it as far as this week goes. As we said early on the show, definitely, if you haven't already, get your tickets bought for our live show. We will be, like I say, live Saturday, 24th of August, 2024, at Hackney Bridge. The Saturday on the all-in weekend. Got Rev Pro that night as well. So if you're getting into town early, or if you're on the fence about getting into town early for that Rev Pro show, come and watch us on Saturday morning. And yeah, tickets will be there until they're gone, so don't make that decision too late as well. Hope to see as many of you as we can. I'll also be speaking of Toronto, be doing a live show out there as well with the Post Wrestling and Poison Rana lads. That was announced today on Review of Raw. Rewind of Raw. Sorry, I still do that. Old school fan. That's still in me. But yeah, John Pollock and Way are doing it. As far as like the day's festivities at the cash-in in Toronto, the day of Money in the Bank. They're going to be. I think there's going to be. You know what Davey and Braden are like. There's going to be all kinds of fun quizzes and all kinds of games and stuff going on as well. A lot of post wrestling personalities, I am told, are going to be in the building as well. But yeah, you're going to find me and Steph on stage with Brandon Thurston and John Pollock and waiting. Don't know what I did to get invited to that very prestigious party, but we're going to be talking about media and wrestling, JP, and everything that's everything around it, which you know me, I've got strong opinions on, so you could probably expect maybe a rant or two from me. So you can get that in person if you happen. If you're not going to be in London, but you are going to be in Toronto, you can come down to the cash-in. Yucks is where it is, JP. The international home of stand-up comedy, I'm told by the Poison Rana lads. And yeah, got that Eventbrite page up on the screen there for video viewers, and there we go. There's me. I'm the one not wearing a tie from the men, JP. I've been told in the Discord I need to dress up for the occasion. I mean, it's going to be 30 degrees in a Toronto summer, so I don't think the rest of the lads are going to be working ties. But maybe I need to bring an iron out there, JP, and be a professional podcaster as only we can.
Oh, mate! I'm so hopefully, I'm hoping that this will be, and I imagine it will be. It'll be recorded and it'll be put up, and I'm like, I want to hear this. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And like I say, like many other luminaries up there with you as well. I had a listen to that this morning. It was the first thing I went to when I was like, okay, I'm getting ready. What am I putting on? I was like, I tend to go to post. I like listening to the new stuff beforehand, but knew about this announcement as well and had a good listen to that as well. And Yucks, they had a photo from the outside. I was like, this looks like a kind of a cool venue. I didn't see the inside of it, but it looks, premier stand-up comedy club in Toronto, and that's a big bloody claim. It's a big city, mate.
Touring the world this summer, JP. It's a summer of summer live show. So yeah, excited for it. Yeah, I think it's 4 hours long the event, so there's going to be obviously other stage shows as well, and like I say, stuff with the Poison Rana lads more with John and Way, and I believe there's like I say, a couple of our friends in that post universe have got stuff to be announced as well. So yeah, if you're in the area, pop there, and if you're not, consider coming down to London and seeing us live there the day before All In as well. But yep, that's all the plugs. Patreon.com/grapple, YouTube.com/@grapple. Thank you, patrons and YouTube members, for supporting us. Thank you to our live patrons for tuning in live, and thank you to our Kings of the Mountain, Conor O'Loughlin, Eddie Sideburns, Chris Platt, and Ewan Cameron. We will catch you again on Ask Grapple on Friday. And if not, Spotlight next week. See you all.
Bye.